Hi, welcome back to Our Hollywood. I'm Kim,
I'm Daniel.
and we have another guest with us today.
Yes, we do. Hello, Alina. How are you?
I am good. Hi guys. I'm like really excited for this. This is gonna be fun. This is I'm very excited because I love talking about filmmaking and no one likes talking about it with me, so I finally get the chance to do that. But yeah, I'm excited.
So basically, Alina reached out to us because you found it on her TikTok, right? Like you found our podcast on her
Yeah,
TikTok.
I saw that you did a podcast and I was like, oh, I started a podcast, so I started listening to your guys's, and I really loved the first episode is the one that I listened to. And I just love the energy and like the things that you guys focused on in your episode. So I was like, I need to reach out and like do something with them.
And then your podcast is really good too. Like the whole concept to it, I was like, wow.
Mhm.
And the cover art is beautiful too.
Yeah, the cover is beautiful.
Do you want to tell us a little
Thank
bit
you.
about like Colonize This and like how it got started, how the six of you like met? Because we were
Yeah.
Yeah,
they're like all from all over the place.
like
How did
because
this happen?
Yeah.
in this podcast we were like, do we even know people to have guests
Yeah.
on our show?
Yeah, so let's see. I don't know how many episodes we have, like 6. So I started like 6 weeks ago. Originally, like I'm a part of another podcast, but like I wanted to start my own. Mainly because I had this idea of starting a podcast that basically focuses on Gen Z women of color, because not only are women of color specifically so like looked over in society in general, but especially Gen Z, and we need some form of representation for them. And so I was like, you know what, might as well start something. And so I contacted one girl that I knew. Okay, long story short, I basically go to an online school, not because of COVID, but since like 7th grade. And so I basically met a lot of people through that. And the first person that I talked about, her name is Marie, and she's one of the co-hosts. She lives in Missouri, but she's now goes to NYU, and she's actually going into the film industry as well. And she's the one I wanted on this episode, but she got busy, which is understandable. So I talked to her. I was like, okay, I have this random idea. I'm like worried it's going to be complete shit. Like, can you help me with it? And so I pitched her the idea, and then I contacted some other people that I knew would be interested in this sort of topic, and it kind of just went from there. And it was like a random idea, and I was worried it was like going to be horrible, but so far we've gotten a lot of like positive responses. So that's kind of how Colonize This kind of came to be, I guess.
That's so interesting.
Yeah,
I
that
love
is
that.
awesome.
Like I love that concept. That's such a good concept.
So like you didn't know, did you know all the people that you have on the podcast with you, or like just through Instagram or like real life?
Yeah, so I live in Idaho, so one of the girls I knew through my community, she is Indigenous, and I wanted to have someone part of the Indigenous community on there to learn about their perspective. Obviously, everyone on the podcast doesn't speak on behalf of their communities, but I had them on there because I just thought that they had interesting perspectives, and their experiences in life kind of would be a really big contribution. So one of the girls I knew through my community, then two of them I know I kind of met through my school, because it is online, but there are actually like students, which not many people know about. It's basically like how the public schools right now are on Zoom. It's like basically just that. And then and then the fourth person, I actually met her through fencing. I fence competitively, and so she, no, it's like, it is an interesting sport for sure. So I met her through fencing, and we had a mutual friend, and so she lives in Utah. And then, yeah, and that's kind of how I met everyone. So I had like mutuals with them, and I knew them, and I followed them on Instagram, and that's such a Gen Z thing to say, but like I like knew them through social media, and I knew like their, I guess, political beliefs, and like I guess the way that we kind of aligned happened that way.
Yeah, that's so cool. It's like the Avengers, kind of. Like
Oh my god.
the
Yeah.
way you described me, I was like, oh my god, like the Avengers.
right.
Yeah, that makes I love that like that example. I would love to be a part of the Avengers. I will now consider us the Avengers.
Got our last podcast if you missed
Oh
it.
yeah, it's like superhero thing.
Superheroes. Yeah, anybody listening?
So then you mentioned a little bit. Oh wait, that was before we started recording. But you mentioned to us that you wanted to get into the film industry.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about why that isn't of interest to you and what you think is like lacking in the film industry right now?
Oh, completely. So I so I am pre-med. I'm interested in like medicine, of course, because, be the minority, you know what I mean? Go with that. But but I do actually like pre-med. I'm gonna say that right now. I am interested in medicine, but films especially, and I talked about this on my podcast, an episode I think is the one that you guys listen to, but I think filmmaking, especially in media, is such a powerful tool. And that sounds cliche, but I think in a certain sense, it is so much more powerful than like laws or policies. Because if you really think about it, like supposedly everyone's equal under the law, right? But no one is really being treated equally. And I think that's really linked to the misrepresentation of people of color in filmmaking. And it really does start with representation and getting more, I guess, making the industry more open-minded in that sense. So my, I guess, interests of activism and social justice really aligned with filmmaking. And I also just love filmmaking in general. I think it's such a beautiful field. And so that's kind of, I guess, why I'm super passionate about filmmaking. But I didn't have a really interesting like origin story of my interest in filmmaking. I know Danielle, yours was like really cool. Like you're just like writing, and it was so cute. I was like listening. I was like, oh my god, that's like literally straight out of a movie. Why is my life not like that?
And then I'm like, I like e-news.
Yeah, no, but I liked yours too because at least you like had some sort of understanding of it. Because for me, like I started getting into photography, and that's like such a stupid thing to say because like literally every person is like, oh, I'm a photographer. But like I actually did find it I like literally did find it interesting. Mainly so yeah, anyways, I started getting to like photography and then I started learning about filmmaking. I don't know if you guys remember like that whole era of like what's his name? Like Sam Colder or like
yes.
Yeah, that was an interesting era for me. So I started watching those and getting obsessed with those. But then I watched, as for like the more artistic version of filmmaking, I watched Black Klansman and I was like completely moved. That was the film that kind of like did it for me. So I didn't have a very interesting experience with my interest in filmmaking. It was kind of just like I saw a movie and I liked it.
Well, I feel like that's a lot of people's
people
experience.
Yeah.
Kind of like, I feel like that's why people make movies, because like to
yeah.
inspire other voices that like maybe don't get the chance to tell their stories as much. But yeah, I also love the Black Klansman. We'll talk about that a little bit today. Which great transition because today we're gonna be talking a little bit about the white savior concept. I got theory.
Yeah,
concept.
It's like a theory.
Yeah,
it's like a lens to
look at film through. So basically, what the white savior is oh my God, the way that it's so complex. I'm like trying to.
But I feel like basically, from my understanding, there's not like a concrete definition because I really tried to look for a concrete definition before this.
Yeah.
But it's basically just having like a white character be the savior or like the like a positive for or the helping hand for POCs and like minorities.
Also, like, using people of color and Black people and using them to advance the white person's story instead of them their own story, which is a problem in a lot more movies than you would think. Like the examples we have today are very like in your face white savior movies, but they do it in so many things.
We'll talk a little bit about the ones that you wouldn't really think about.
Well, like okay, so when I was watching, we were watching a couple of videos on this, and the first thing that came to my mind is literally like Superman, because I remember there's this one shot. I don't remember what movie it is. It's I don't know. It might be Man of Steel, but it's like him like standing, and then there's like a bunch of like I think he's like in Mexico or something, and they're all like trying to grab at him, and I'm like, and the whole thing, the director was like, oh, he's like a god or something. And I'm like,
no, I hate that.
Yeah, I don't know, but they do it in a lot of movies like that, and I don't know.
And like Avatar. Avatar is a white savior movie. Like random things in Atlantis. Oh gosh, like and it's just crazy how. I think the point of like bringing this up is like how it's weird how ingrained it is, and I really didn't think about this until like when I started studying film in college. I was like, whoa. Movies are white savior movies, and I didn't even know because that's just how
it's so normalized.
Old, and that's like you said, like in your intro, like movies really do shape how societies like view things. Like it because we say movies and like television are like entertainment, but everything has a politicized thing because that's a part of who people are, their identity and that follows through into the art. So it's important to have diverse voices, which we haven't had.
No.
Yeah.
Hopefully changing.
Yeah.
We're on like we're tiptoeing
Yep.
towards it, but yeah.
Gladly.
Yeah, so the three movies we kind of wanted to focus on today, just to kind of give a little example of the white savior in film, these are all movies, is The Help, which came out in 2011, The Blindside, which came out in 2009, and Green Book, which came out last year. So clearly this is still an issue. Like it's
an issue. Yeah.
I think the Green Book one is really interesting. And when
It
we
is
get there,
really
but the whole just how it won Best Picture is really interesting to me. So we can start with The Help. Did anyone read The Help? Has anyone read that book?
I haven't read the book.
No, I didn't read it. I heard about it because a lot of people were talking about the white savior kind of idea in it, and like, so that's kind of what I know about it is through that. And like, I don't know, kind of what you said, like the whole idea of white saviors, and like it's just so normalized. Like even I don't realize it when I watch like something, like I don't realize it until afterwards. I kind of think about it, I'm like, okay,
and you reflect
that, yeah, I was like, that was probably racist, but I didn't like, so it was like, I don't know, and it's like in a lot of films, like, and I guess we can go into this later, but especially with like South Asian representation, because I am South Asian, so a lot of times when I watch a movie with like South Asian characters, like it's so like important to me to feel properly represented, or at least close enough to being represented. And a lot of times, like there's one example I literally saw it this morning, was like how frequently like hijabis, like you see in movies with hijabis, like they are always identified through like taking off their hijab or like doing something for like a white boy to get them to be interested in them. And I don't have a specific example. I think one was like Elite. I've never seen that, but there's something like that. I don't know. Have you guys seen that or seen that?
Yeah.
Like,
So in Elite, one of the main she's like a main character. She's like billed as top cast. But basically she falls in love with this white guy from her school. And like her like journey is like, he's like, you don't need to wear that.
Oh my God.
Because like your parents and like blah blah. And then like she goes to a party and she takes it off, and that's like her big scene.
Yeah.
Like, oh, what a weird message.
That is really odd.
And she does it throughout, like she's still like when she goes to the party, she's like not wearing it. It's supposed to be like, oh, she's like a different person, but it's just it's really weird how they portrayed that whole relationship. Yeah. That show. That show is weird.
But
and
they're all really
kids.
hot though.
Okay. Well, focus, Kimberly. It's literally like a show like
I got eyes.
it's like Pretty Little Liars kind of television, Riverdale.
Yeah.
Like murder mystery.
Oh God.
Yeah, they're all supposed to be teenagers, but they all look like 25.
I hate that. It makes me. I look like a teenager. I am a teenager, but I look like I'm like 10 years old. So that's not proper, you guys. Like
I
looking.
don't think I'm 16. So.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But how you were saying, like, yeah, even that show's still airing. Like, they're doing another season. So, like,
what?
Yeah, I don't know. They're still not representing, I think, how South Asian characters should be represented. But yeah, there's white saviors in that show too. It's literally everywhere.
It is.
Okay, so during the Black Lives Matter protests, The Help became the most watched movie on Netflix. That says a lot about
it does.
American culture, and just like
the movie that you think of when you think about one.
They were like, how do we help Black people? Let's watch The Help on
Let's
Netflix.
watch The Help. What? It's literally centered around a white person. Like
it is. And I don't know, it makes me mad because it's like this, like the fact that the like viewership on that increased during the Black Lives Matter like protests or whatever makes me so mad, because it's like white people like want to feel good about themselves, and that's what they do it through. And like honestly, I am bashing white people. I do that way too often. But like, take it, y'all gotta take it, like whatever. But like I mean, I talk about this a lot, and people are like, oh my God, Alina, that's all you say. But like, it's like history in general is written by the oppressor, and this film industry in general is also run by the oppressor. Like for the entirety of the history of the film industry, it's been run by straight rich white men, and they're going to make movies that make them feel good about themselves. They're not going to make movies that make people of color or minorities feel good about themselves. And if there is a rare time when there is a movie that represents people of color, it's not proper representation, and there obviously is like tones of white saviorism, and it's probably going to be directed by a white person as well who doesn't understand the struggles of being a person of color. So The Help is like a good example of that.
It's interesting because I have in my notes, I was just like, it comes down to making sure there's diversity in all areas of the entertainment industry,
Yeah.
below and especially above the line, because
Yes.
you can blame like I feel people focus on like the actors and stuff because that's what people connect to most, because those are the ones you see on screen.
Yeah.
But the people at the studios like green lighting these movies, like these movies just don't come out of thin air. There's people making decisions, and the people making decisions even to this day are white people. And we need more diversity, and like you're obviously going to relate to somebody more that is similar to you. That's just like a fact, like it is. And because there's all these white people making these decisions to greenlight things, those are the stories they connect to because they see themselves into it. And people are selfish, and so you're gonna want to see yourself on the screen. But we've had the white people on the screen for so long. I'm tired of it.
Well, I think that's a big part of the whole white savior complex thing is
100.
that white people need to feel good about themselves and prove to themselves that they're not racist. But the way these movies portray racism is like you're either not racist or you are racist. But it's more complex than that.
So much
it's
more
like
concept.
they another thing that they mentioned in like the video, which is a big part of The Help, is that they focus on personal levels of racism, but they don't focus they don't focus on like the systemic racism, which is also a huge thing. So like in The Help, it's Emma Stone's character is like a writer, and she's like, I want to tell the stories of these black maids
because her maid that raised her essentially got fired, and that really upset her.
Wow, how deep.
And then so it's based on a true story as well, and all of these movies I think that we're going to talk about are based on true stories, and every single black person that the films were based on was like, no, absolutely not, I did not like that.
I mean, I would understand why.
And so the way that like I'll tell someone like, oh, that movie's like, and they're like, oh no, but it's a good movie, and I'm like, okay, but the black people are literally telling you that it is not a good, that is not how they want to be portrayed, and you're like, well, no. What do you mean? Well, no.
Exactly.
What do you mean? Well, no. Like that's
you can't like and that I mean I see this like in the general scheme of activism is like when a person of color voices their concern about like something that offends them, the white community is like, oh no, it's not offensive. It's like, bitch, you can't choose what's offensive and not offensive if you're not a part of that community. Like it's literally not that hard.
So the whole theme of this episode, it's literally not about you to white people.
How are you gonna sit there and like that's like okay, so The Help, the book is written by a white woman, the script was written by a white man. What I couldn't like remember the word man. A white man, directed by a white man, and it just like the biggest thing, especially when it comes to just Hollywood in general, like why are white people writing stories about black people when they will never ever understand their experience? Like how are you gonna sit there and I don't get it. Like I'm not gonna sit here and write a story about a black person because I will never truly understand when all of their livelihood, and especially with the Black Lives Matter movement that we've seen, like people are saying like, oh, you're like, why does it matter your skin tone? Like white people go through stuff, white people or whatever.
Oh my god.
Like, huh? What?
But also like white people are like, oh, I'm gonna write a story about a black character. The first thing they think about is slavery.
Yeah, literally.
Like, we've had so many slavery movies written by white people. I'm like,
girl.
What? Where was that? Was Schindler's List? Okay, wait. Did I imagine, was Schindler's List like the main character like a Nazi? Right?
I don't remember.
And he was like saving like the Jewish people. It was weird.
I
remember watching that movie and I was like,
I just remember somebody talking about the movie and I was like, why do you want to watch that?
It was there's something white savior going on in Schindler's List, but I'm sorry. But I'm pretty sure there is. I'll look it up later. I might cut that out because maybe I'm overseeing. I'll look it up just in case. And then, okay, so in The Help, one of the maids that, I almost said Emma Roberts, that Emma Stone's character is telling the story of, I don't remember her name, but Viola Davis is playing that character. And the actual person that it's based off of was like, no, I don't like that. And then Viola Davis herself has literally said, like, I regret making that movie
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's a story about Black voices, and
Mhm.
their voices were not, it wasn't like their stories being told. And like it
Yeah.
went against their accounts of what was going on in that whole story. And that's just like, I don't know. I
Yeah.
just can't comprehend that.
I don't understand as a filmmaker and making these films, like when you're a filmmaker making a story about anything, you have a duty to understand the social context of what you're putting
Mhm.
out there
Yeah.
in the universe.
Exactly.
And as a director, you have the say, right? Like at the
Mhm.
director and producer, like at the end of the day, you have like a say of like what happens, like, you know. And I just don't understand how when you're including, if you, because like, yeah, obviously I would want to have like example, like I would want to have like a diverse cast, right? But if
Yeah.
I'm writing, I'm trying to figure out a perspective about somebody else, I'm gonna go talk to somebody that has that perspective because I'm never gonna understand that perspective. So I would
Yeah.
want somebody who has that to be like, no, yeah, that's
Exactly.
like generally I would say that could be an experience of a person like me
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
have social responsibility to do that.
Yeah.
And I just don't
Mhm.
understand how filmmakers can sit there and sleep peacefully at night, knowing that they did an injustice and a disservice to a whole ass community.
Yeah, literally. And like, and I talked about this, like, I literally bring this example up all the time, but it's literally so relevant. And like, what you were talking, Kimberly, about like how it, as like a filmmaker, it's your job to like one accurately represent people, but also not speak on behalf of communities if you're not a part of that community. And so this reminded me of like something that happened at my school. This one girl started like a book club, and great, right? Whatever, that's nice. And but it was like specifically a Black Lives Matter book club, and I was like, oh, that's like a great idea. But she's white, and I was like, see, this is what we're not gonna do. Yeah, literally, you guys should see their faces. They're so like, what the fuck?
Oh my God.
And I was like, no, I'd love the idea of like amplifying Black voices, but you can't be the one to like speak on behalf of them because you don't understand what it's like to be a Black person in our society at all. You don't understand what it's like to go through this like go through this large like,
but the delivery was not.
exactly. And I'm like, and this is something that I say all the time, but it's like there's a difference between being a white ally and a white savior. If you're a white ally, and like in the Black Lives Matter movement in general, like it's purposely to amplify Black voices and to uplift them and not speak over them. And that's literally what you're doing by running a book club about Black Lives Matter and Black people in general, and you don't know what it's like to be like part of that community. I feel like that's applicable to the film industry as well. If you're writing a movie about slavery and you're not Black, or you're writing a movie about like the Black community and you're not Black, don't do that. Like you don't know what it's like, or at least look at other perspectives. So I don't know. I just thought that was relevant somehow.
It's like a perfect example of like white people love to take up space.
Yes,
like,
they do. They do.
Not like that. I mean like they like to be like, oh yeah, like I just want to support like Black people, and then they'll like talk
Then give
over
them
them.
the platform.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like that's the thing. Like especially, I've been trying to think because now I have a decent amount of followers, so I'm trying to think of like ways that I can also amplify other people that don't have as many followers as me, but I think have something to say. And I think if more people had that mentality, I think it would help a lot, and it just would help a lot. Like, why are you going to be so selfish and not help other people out? Like, it's just such a
or make it about yourself.
Make
like,
it about yourself. It's really not about you.
No,
it's literally
And it's like funny because she's doing college apps right now. So I was like, oh, convenient timing that you're starting a Black Lives Matter book club and doing college apps. And I hate, there's so many people like that at my school, and it makes me so mad. And like, I obviously like her intentions, I hope were like right and pure, but it's like, you're really doing more harm than good by starting that. So, and she's white. So I was like, okay.
Yeah, that's not it. That's not it.
And that's Emma Stone's character.
Literally.
Yeah, exactly.
And then like she acts the whole movie. She acts like she's the one that's being like discriminate because they're like, you can't tell the story. And she's like, but I'm going to. And I'm like,
the fuck? No way.
Make Emma Stone like the victim. I'm like, man, you are white. You are a white woman. You're fine.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, if you don't make your book, if you do make your book, you're gonna be fine.
Yeah.
But the people you're writing your story about aren't. And what are you actually doing for them?
Yeah.
Because you're gonna self-gain from the book profits. Like I highly doubt that you're gonna give back to all the people you basically stole the story from.
Well, but that's literally so many like I feel like these stories are literally like they took the story of a Black person and then they profited off of it without.
Yeah.
That's so nasty. I don't understand how people can do that. Like that's so gross to just write someone else's story.
Yeah.
Yeah, the second one that we want to talk a little bit about was The Blind Side, which I feel like
Oh.
everyone likes this movie, but I don't know if it's because there's sports
Mm-mm.
involved that I was just like, what's going on?
Okay, when it first came
Yeah.
out, because when it was 2009, I was literally like 10 years old.
Yeah.
And I just love Sandra Bullock. I love this movie. I did, but now that I have knowledge, and it's okay, and I want people to listening know, like, just because you liked the movie when it first came out, and you, as you grew up, you learned a different perspective, and you realized that it was wrong, like that movie is wrong. That's totally
Completely.
that is
Yeah.
totally fine, and it's not a shameful thing.
It's not, and it's
It's
okay
not.
to like, well, I mean, I guess in this case, but like, let's say the author of the movies like starts being transphobic on Twitter, like it's okay to like, the movies still were part of your life, and like,
Yeah.
you have to accept.
Appreciate it for what it is, but don't romanticize it, or don't try to make
Yes.
excuses for it. I think is
Exactly.
the issue.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Because The Blind Side was like, I feel like everyone saw it. Everyone saw
Oh
it.
yeah, it was a huge movie.
Yeah, she
It
won
was.
Actress
Yeah.
for that movie. Which, okay, so it was a true story about Michael Oher. I don't know if I'm saying that right,
Football.
but he was a football star. And so in the movie, like the plot of the movie is basically like this woman like finds him and she like rescues him from the streets, and she like
She adopts him into
she
his family.
teaches him to play
They
football.
are fast food.
Wow.
The more I'm thinking about it, I'm like, wait, that movie. Okay. I don't know, but the whole plot is literally like she saves him from that.
And it's in like in one scene particular in the movie that sticks out to me when he goes back to his old hood, is what they
Oh
say.
God, I hate that.
And like there's like a bunch of people waiting outside, and it's supposed to be painted as like a really hostile environment, and it's she like stands up for him and to all these people that were like he grew up with essentially, and it's just like so weird and also embarrassing. Like I'd be so embarrassed if the lady that was adopting me, can you just get in the car? I still like, know these people. Relax.
Yeah, Sandra Bullock's character in this movie is out of line
And
the entire time.
Yeah, completely.
Is like they basically just use these Black characters as plot devices.
Yeah,
They don't like he's super passive and quiet, and they try to pass it off as like, oh, it's because he's damaged, and
yeah, and I hate that.
it's no, like I 100%, he probably has anger within him because like, and that's okay to have, and like, but I think sometimes they're too afraid to like, because the like, oh, stereotypical portrayal of a Black man is an angry Black man or angry Black woman.
Yeah.
You know, and there is a fine line, but all humans have that emotion. Just don't make it into a stereotype. Is that so hard?
Like, exactly.
But also not even like the posters for these movies. If you look at it, even the posters like show like the help poster is Emma Stone's character and some other white woman like sitting on a bench, and then the two Black women in like maid uniforms like standing over here. Or the book, it's Viggo Mortensen's character up front driving, and then the other character sitting in the back. And
they thought they were doing something like driving Mrs. Daisy. They're like, it's driving Mrs. Daisy, but reverse.
Yeah, no, they.
Oh my God.
Not crazy. And then
the
Blindside is him
like,
in the middle, and she's holding him. It's like very ethereal looking.
Yeah.
Like the literally looks like a white savior.
Yeah. It does. And like that movie especially because when did you say it was? 2009 is when it was like released, whatever. I don't know how I was like, I was like 6 years old, 7. But I remember watching like the trailer for it after it was released, like when I was able to comprehend things. And I swear, like it just really rubbed me the wrong way. And this not when I was like 7 years old, like when I was older and I watched the trailer. But I was like, this is like so clearly like just like a form of like white savior, because like it's so obvious that and you mentioned this, like he was like, oh, quiet because he was like seen as like damaged or something, and she helped him, and like it just makes me mad because they used his character to make her seem like so godly or like as the hero. And that's like happens all the time. And kind of touching back to what you said earlier, Kimberly, about like normalizing like growth on like realizing these and like that's important too, because it's like this industry in general normalizes this so frequently and so often that it's hard for us to notice when it's like happening and when it isn't, because it's so prevalent in like not only the film industry but like in every industry in general. So like it's okay. Like I'm sure I've watched a movie and been like, wow, I love this movie, but it was definitely like had a lot of themes of white savior in it. So like that definitely should be normalized as well, because it's like not the fault of the consumer. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because like we're not making the movie, so like
Yeah.
not be like, oh well, I wish they had changed that, because like they were the ones they should have. There's so many people involved in that process that
Yeah.
someone could have been like, okay, guys.
That's the thing that always trips me out. I'm like, there's so many people that have to read this stuff, and that's what you landed on. And like you have to edit things out in like the editing room, obviously,
Right.
but like that's what you landed on. Like
come on.
There's so many.
Could have done something better.
And so so Michael, the football star that the Blindside is based on, he didn't even like the movie, and it was literally about him. He said,
come on.
because they didn't make it about him, they made it about
yeah, exactly.
Oh my God, he said, you don't have to be saved by a wealthy white family. That was his message that he wanted to tell.
Yeah, period. Exactly.
Because imagine like they make a movie about you and it's actually not about you. It's some random white woman.
And
That
then
would make me so mad.
people who, all these Black kids who think they're going to see a story about somebody who they look up to because he is an icon, like he made it, and like he did make it from a bad situation to a very good one, but the narrative they portrayed in The Blind Side is like, oh, you have to have ins and wealth to do that, and
a white woman has to say,
and you had to find a white woman to adopt you.
Yeah.
He's so much more than that, and they barely gave if you really look at the movie, he barely talks.
Yeah,
he barely speaks in the movie. They literally it's so awful how they portrayed this man, like it's super one-dimensional.
Yeah,
and they market it as a movie about him,
but like he's no representation. And like I hate that, because again that like is tied into representation in the film industry, like in front and behind the camera. Because like, and I know Spike Lee is kind of controversial, but like I really did like his film She's Gotta Have It. I think that was like his first film or whatever, but I like that because the main character is a Black woman, and it's obviously a Black cast, and she's like not this one-dimensional character. She has so many different aspects to her, and the movie isn't just about like her Blackness. Like it's not solely based off of her being a Black person. It's based off of her like other characteristics, her love life, her being an artist, and like that is what I think more films need to have, because like if we start letting representation fall through the cracks, like we really are going to fall so behind as a society, because like as I mentioned before, representation is such an important thing in film, and film is such a large, I guess, tool to like construct a massive narrative to like a lot of people. So I mean, it's important for us to be accurate about what we like portray.
I think we are behind still. Like we're still behind on this.
The book literally came out last year.
Yeah, exactly, and won the Oscar.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about. Okay,
transitioning to Green Book.
Yeah, because I wrote down the other movies that were nominated. Because when you look, okay, so you say, oh, Green Book won, but when you look at the other movies that were nominated, it's like a bigger slap in the face.
Yeah.
So Green Book was nominated last year for Best Picture at the Academy Awards. And the other pictures that are
2 years ago.
Me saying the other pictures, the other movies that were nominated were Black Panther, Black Klansman, Roma, Vice, A Star Is Born, Bohemian Rhapsody, and The Favorite. So I just
3 of those movies are about not white people.
Yeah. Wait, what's Vice about?
Vice is about white people. It's about Dick Cheney.
Star Is Born is about white people. Bohemian Rhapsody is about, I mean, a gay man, but also like the director was like
a very whitewashed movie. Bohemian Rhapsody. Okay, 4 of them.
The Favorite, white people. So Black Panther, Black Klansman, and Roma, and Green Book were the only. Well, okay. Here's the thing about Green Book, and which is why I think that win was so controversial. Green Book, it tells a story of a Black queer musician. His name was Dr. Donald Shirley.
I didn't even know he was queer until I watched a video about Green Book, and I was like, he's a Black queer artist, and he focused on the white man. Oh my god.
Oh my god. And they didn't talk about it.
All of these movies, the Black characters are so much more interesting than the white people that they like based it. Like you're telling me that the like a white straight man driver is more interesting than a Black queer musician in,
Oh my
I don't
God.
remember what year this movie takes place in, or then like a football star that like started from nothing and then like became like a huge success, and then like maids, like black maids that were working for like white people during all of this like civil rights movement. You're telling me that white people are more interested in these stories?
Because it's selfish, because the people that are telling these stories are white people, and they can only that I was telling Daniel before we started playing, I was like, I just don't understand how like we're forced to look, like POCs are forced to look through white people's lens. But for some reason, when it's like flipped and white people have to look through a POC's lens, they can't relate.
Yeah,
exactly.
Like a superhero, like a Black Panther or something. Like you have to, oh my gosh, it just doesn't make any sense to me. And like like it just shows that like white people really just are selfish. I guess. I'm half white, I guess. I'll preface by that. So I know I was like itching myself. I was like, I am white though. But there's faults in it, and like I have arguments with my dad about this all the time. I have arguments with my family about this all the time, because I'm just like, think about your arguments that you're talking about. You're looking at it from a white person's lens, and you're not having empathy. You're not even trying to like level with somebody that's different than you, because it's all about you at the end of the day, and you can't even be not selfish for 2 hours to watch.
Literally.
Yeah.
What?
It doesn't add up.
Yeah, I'm like what is going on?
Well, also
the math is not adding up.
I think that like the way my train of thought just left.
Sorry,
I forgot what I was gonna say. The way my mind just completely blank.
That happens to me all the time. Every single podcast recording, I just forget what I'm gonna say.
How we're forced to look through white people's lenses.
Oh yes, that. Okay, I was gonna go off of that. It's because like I was trying to listen to you and also like make my thoughts at the same time.
No,
so
I
it was
do
just
that
a
all the
lot.
time. Yeah.
But I think
this topic gives me antsy.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah, I'm like literally breaking out into a rash because I'm so irritated.
I think that like, so the whole point of the white savior thing is to make white people look at these other stories, but also be like, oh well, I'm like that one good white character. And so the problem with that is if you don't make yourself uncomfortable, if you don't question your beliefs, your like what you grew up with, then you're not gonna change your mind at all.
Exactly.
That's why it's important that people see films from other voices that represent the communities, because
people that are different from them,
you're stepping out of your world and you're going into theirs, and you're like, okay, let me try to understand why.
More people need to seek this discomfort.
Yeah,
exactly.
You're comfortable and you're going to be like, well, maybe they might do something that you have done, and they're like, well, that's racist, and you need to accept that, because if you want to be anti-racist instead of just not racist, then you need to accept that and like change it so that you're not being these like, because like people aren't either not racist or racist. That's not how
it doesn't work like that. Yeah.
That's not how life works. Like it's not that simple. And so like people will be like, oh, I'm not racist, and then they'll do racist things and like do racist jokes and all of these things.
Yeah, they won't like a thing they see on Instagram story. That is bare minimum.
Oh my god.
Yeah, exactly. And
they're like, it's not my fight to fight.
Yeah.
Yes, like, it is, because you have your privilege already.
Exactly.
It is.
Literally all celebrities that like
for
the whole Black Lives
and
Matter.
they're like I can see what they're doing, but I don't think that's a valid reason, because they're like, oh well, if I say something, then that might inhibit me from getting jobs. Why would you want those jobs in the first place?
Exactly.
Like that's why I try to explain to people, because like my parents are like, because I don't have a job and I graduated college, and I'm like, well, I don't want to work for a place that doesn't align with my morals.
Exactly.
I'm selling out at that point, and honestly, like I would be miserable working for a company or like working for somebody that is upholding values that I don't uphold.
Exactly.
Why would I want to do
that? Like, not to go on a tangent, but a lot of what these companies do is very performative. Like I was during Pride Month, right? And they had like the Pride flag and like the American flag, I think. And I went like a week later when it was no longer Pride Month.
It's like gone.
Yeah, and I was like I was gonna show my friend. I was like, oh look, the Pride flag is, and I looked up and it was like
it's gone. Like
I was like,
just have them all up at the same time, year round, baby.
And they were selling like Pride IKEA bags, but they were on sale after Pride Month.
My God. Really? And I mean, we had a podcast episode about this, about intersectionality and activism, and it's applicable in the film industry as well. But like we talked about how my other co-host mentioned this. She lives in Texas, and she was talking about how these companies who like put up a pride flag for like the month and then take it down, it's so performative and it makes the movement seem fake. It makes movement seem pseudo because of their pseudo actions. And it makes me mad because it's like no, like you don't just need to be like accepting of the LGBT community for like 1 month. Like just make it like a moral of yours. And so that was like also one thing that we talked about, because it's like, I don't know, it just makes me mad because it just shows the movement in general as like fake if your actions are fake towards it. So it's dumb.
It is dumb. And like, I just don't, I don't even know. I just don't understand how we are in 2020 when we're having all of this, like, everyone says like, oh, we're so diverse, we're so inclusive, but no, we're not, because in general, but especially within the film industry, like, well, actually no, because in the film industry recently we've been called out, Oscar so white, Me Too, like, it's all coming to head, and I feel like it was very effective for like 2 years, and then now everything is just kind of like falling apart, like, and I don't even know, man. It makes me so tired. It's just so tiring, especially as a future filmmaker, I hope. And
you'll get there. It's okay.
as long as I keep speaking out into the universe. It's just so hard. And like I was talking about this the other day, like on live to some people that were watching to me, and I was like, it's just kind of defeating sometimes, because I there's like, it's so up and down. Like I feel like so empowered by, like, if I see a movie by I mean, there's not really, like, Lulu Wang is like the only Asian female director I can think of off the top of my head. And she, like, even like Chinese and Filipino, that's super different. Like, like it's hard for me because I'm like, I have nobody to look up to. There's no one that has trailblazed before me, and I'm like, damn, I gotta trailblaze.
You can do it. And no, I get it, because for me, like, and like I'm South Asian, so I like, whenever I see, even if it's an East Asian person like get recognized for their work, I feel so empowered, because it's like I don't have anyone specifically part of like my community that's really like in the film industry that I'm like, okay, they represent me properly. Like Mindy Kaling, like not really, like she's kind of like concerning. And then there's like and like Priyanka Chopra, I hate her like a lot. She's very nationalist. Priyanka Chopra.
Oh my god.
I know. Literally, like, bitch, what are you doing? Like, just clapping? Like, that's not helping anything. So, but I think one person that this is like kind of a more like indie film, but it recently got picked up by Apple, so now it's like really big. It's called Hala. It's about a Pakistani girl, Muslim, living in like suburban, I think, California, and like she's hijabi, and it's just her experiences battling with like multicultural, like, I guess, identities. And that was the one time that, obviously I'm not hijabi, but that was the one time I felt that someone properly represented the South Asian community, because it just, I don't know, it just felt more authentic, and the character was more than just like being like hijabi. It was more of like her experiences, and then she got into skateboarding, so it was just like, I enjoyed it a lot more. I'm sure there are issues with that, but that was directed by Minhal Baig, and I look up to her a lot because of that film. And I think, what's her name? Oh, is it Jada Smith or whatever? She's the one who produced it or something, I think. But anyways.
I didn't know she did that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
I'm like so impressed when a celebrity throws money at something. I'm like, oh, nice. When Drake and like Future like produced before, I was like, cool. Like, they didn't really do anything. They just threw money.
It's like produced by,
which is still cool. They're using their wealth to promote different, you know,
which is like the bare minimum, but it's like, thank you for trying.
Yeah, exactly. It's so sad.
And I feel like, okay, like we're talking about a lot of the all of the white saviorism examples that we gave are a white person being the the white savior being as like in a situation with a black person, and the black person being used as like you said, a plot device
Mhm.
for the white person's story, but it's also like
They do it in like a bunch of things. It's not even just like it's POCs in general.
Like
the movies
yeah
are specifically Black people, but like Dances with Wolves, Atlantis, Avatar, Aliens. How are we gonna colonize aliens? Like how are we doing that? Like what?
CGI aliens, and we're like
CGI
colonize
aliens,
them.
Yeah, and
literally.
examples, like even Wind River could be argued as like a white savior movie.
Mhm.
Like it's just I don't understand why, or like Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones is white savior.
I remember I saw that in one of the examples, and I was like, not once did I. Well, I haven't seen that movie in a really long time, but
which Indiana Jones was it?
I forget the one where he was like he went to I think it's an indigenous tribe.
The second one, where the whole character of the Asian boy.
Was it the one with Shia LaBeouf?
No, it's the second one.
Because I was like, I literally am in love with that man. I would be so mad if he was like,
that is
he is so fine. I like cannot like not talk about him. He's amazing. But anyways,
I think he's great. Yeah.
Anyway,
so
lost my train of thought. Shia LaBeouf.
He's great.
Indiana Jones.
Oh, it's the one character of Shortstop. Oh my, whose idea was that?
Yeah,
that's so racist.
It is
the most racist thing I've ever. I remember watching the movie even as a kid. I was like, "That's not. I know that's not right." As a kid,
you're like, "That's not right."
A lot of like big like blockbuster old movies have like POC characters that are literally like.
Because think about the people. Yeah, think about the people that are writing it. I guarantee you, especially back then, they never even interacted with POCs.
Yeah.
At all.
And the way they write them with like they're speaking broken English and stuff. I'm like,
oh god,
it's so just like, and I think that's how like we're all like saying how we never feel super accurately like represented in media.
I know. I grab onto things. I'm like
the bare minimum.
Yeah, literally like being seen in Booksmart. I'm like, but it's like not really. I'm like, she's white at the end of the day. She's white and she looks like she grew up in LA. Like, I'll take that one.
Yeah, me too. I'm the same way.
I was thinking, I don't know. It's just crazy. Like, it's crazy, especially like as like POCs in general. Like we've all like had this experience where we're like grabbing onto people that like aren't actually represented at all because we so desperately, especially with films like you. That's the thing that makes you want to like a film is like you grab onto that person. And I was like making a little Pinterest board like a couple months ago, and I was like thinking about like the blueprint because I was like when the main character trend on like TikTok. I was like, ooh, like who influenced me? And then I was thinking about the movies, and all of them were like blonde white women, and skinny blonde white women. I'm like, I absolutely am not a skinny white blonde woman. So, and it's just I don't know.
Well, okay, to tie it back to like the white saviorism thing, I can say like from the bottom of my heart that a white person has never done anything to benefit me at all.
I agree. I know exactly what you mean.
I've had white people like oh my god, this is gonna get dark. But like I've had white people like do things to try like to bring me down. I've had racist comments from me. I've had like
if you're white and you're listening to this and it makes you uncomfortable, you should be uncomfortable. But you
should
keep on listening because you need to acknowledge, even though it wasn't you that personally said this to any of us, like you benefit from the same benefits that they do.
System. Yeah, exactly.
Like,
the system is literally built for you.
And also, like, I feel like all these characters that we've been talking about, where it's like the wife saver, these people, they were their own like hero. They were their own. These people like made their own lives. They didn't need Sandra Bullock to come in and like help them.
Exactly.
That's also like it's such an insult, I think, to not only us, but like to the parents of people who like aren't in these stories. Because like my mom told me, I remember, like I know it's hard to like grasp sometimes that your parents have experienced racism at some point if they're not white.
Yeah.
But then when they do tell you those stories, you're like, oh my god, and it just like it hits so close to home. But like it's the truth, and you can't. Oh my god, the coaster. It's the truth, and you can't like ignore it. And I think like you try to tell a white person that
they immediately go on the defense because they think
they're like, well, I'm not racist. Yeah, and I mean, my mom, and like, so I live in Idaho. Obviously, that's not the most like liberal place to be, or most open mind place to be. and she was driving on the highway, and this guy like threw up a white power symbol at her, and yeah, and it's like this sign, okay, right, and that's considered a white power symbol, right? And I was like, Mom, wait, what the fuck did you just say? What did this guy do to you? Like, I was about literally ready to beat someone up. I'm like 5'3", like I'll fight you anyway. Like, just watch out. And it's just like what you said makes me so mad, because it's like it's so difficult for especially the like second gen like people of color and children of immigrants to realize this, but our parents like have gone through so much in regards to like racism.
Yeah.
And like people don't understand that, especially the white community. And I'll probably get dragged for saying this, but I've never once met a white person who is not racist. Like, and I say that with 100% confidence, because like as I mentioned, even if you consider yourself not racist, that doesn't mean you're like anti-racist, and also you still benefit from the same oppressive system that is oppressing people of color, specifically Black and Indigenous people, like even more. And you're just still like you're benefiting from that. So I have never met a white person that's not racist. So
it's
be offended.
But it's true though, to like, because it's instilled within us like as we grow up. Like I grew up in a white family, and like I didn't really realize it at the time, but upon like reflecting of my childhood, I was just like, wow, like I really was brought up with like racist ideologies. And like at least like I moved to California because I was in Virginia, and then like I moved to California, and I just kind of it is a lot more liberal here, and I'm grateful for that. But also it's just like it's just so weird to think like I love my family members, but like damn, like it's especially hard. And I feel like a lot of people can identify with that too, like just growing up in a white family and then realizing the racism you were brought up with, but becoming knowledgeable of that and dismantling that is how you make the difference between being not racist and anti-racist, I think.
Exactly.
Like
completely.
Well, also like these movies that are made to make white people feel comfortable with racism and things that maybe they've done.
Don't be comfortable. It's your fault.
The problem is
literally.
people aren't willing to step out of their comfort zone and their point of view. And like
crazy.
I think recently
more people need to be comfortable with being called out and holding themselves accountable. Like
exactly.
Like it's just even small things. I literally want people to tell me I'm wrong. Like I want people to be like, no, that was like that was wrong what you said, because I'm a big enough person that I can be like, oh, tell me why that was wrong. I want to know, and then I'll do my further research and I'll correct that wrong if that made you uncomfortable. Because that's what all people should do.
Because and also no, exactly, like some people like can't like accept, like if you tell a white person like you are racist, even if you want to say you're not racist as much as you want, but that's just how this world works. Sorry to tell you. But some people are like recently with when the protests sort of started with the whole Black Lives Matter movement, like right after George Floyd was murdered, I think a lot of people were sort of in a like I'm so angry but I don't know what to do stage, and so I would see some of my white, and not some of them weren't even white, they were just like half white, and like I was like, hello.
Well, where we live is very whitewashed.
Yes.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
And so even us. So
I'm
not even white at all,
sure.
but I'm whitewashed.
Me too. It's okay.
And so
acknowledge that. It's okay.
Yeah. So we
grew up in a white society where like everything we saw was catered to white people. So we were like, well, like how do I pretend like I'm white?
Yeah, our town is very white.
That's so bad. It's so messed up. Like, but that's how it was.
And it's like it's not our fault, because like if we're surrounded by white people constantly, and especially a system that like oppresses us and constantly tells us that people of color are not good enough, we're going to want to try and be white to fit in. Like that is just guaranteed. And I know people who are more like in air quotes like whitewashed because they feel like they don't fit in. And I mean, I'm like very whitewashed myself, but I try to recognize the ways in which like that is damaging to me, and how like that just further like exacerbates my like insecurities on being a person of color. So I mean, it's not your fault if you're whitewashed. Like I get why.
Just acknowledge it and try to embrace your culture as you get older. And I think sometimes it's scary for people to acknowledge that, which is so weird because we're so young. And I think it also just comes from like generational trauma. From everybody gets generational trauma from their family members, and especially their parents. And like all of us are immigrant like at least one of our parents are immigrants.
Yeah.
So I think especially with people that like our parents, they so desperately wanted to buy into the American dream and become assimilated so bad that we just we didn't learn about our culture because they wanted us to be American. So bad. And that's so sad that they felt like
it
they
is
to erase their culture to make them and their kids a better life. Like that's so sad.
Yeah. Also, not to mention that like the American dream is so fake in my opinion.
Oh, it is.
It's like so fucking fake. I wrote a whole Spanish essay on this. I hate it. But anyways, that's like a whole nother rant. But yeah.
Though we almost went on a whole other tangent about the American dream, but like
it do that all the time.
It's all like it seems like we're going on tangents, but it's all interconnected and like
totally, completely.
And it's just hard. Yeah, it's just
it all ties back to white people not wanting to step out of their comfort zone.
Exactly. They get so uncomfortable when people talk about racism because they know that it's like partially that they are at fault for it. I mean, sure, like if you weren't if you weren't like alive during the time of slavery and you're white, like I get that you didn't like enforce slavery, but you're still enforcing a system that has these effects of slavery still evident in communities that were very prevalent in like during that time, I guess. So
and like one of my notes I have just that all of this, like everything going on in the world and like how it ties into film and TV, like this ideology of civilization being carried by white people, and like the white people have to come in and save people of color and impose their evangelical like ideologies onto people, like is just icky. I have that verbatim written. Icky. And
I love it.
White people are the standard. The ideology that white people are the standard. Again, gross.
Literally in one of my screenwriting classes, they taught us, they're like, if you in your script you do not say this like when you're describing the character in like the action lines, if you don't say this character is black or this character is South Asian, like if you don't say that, they're just gonna cast it as a white person, which makes me so mad.
That's so why is that the default?
Right? Like I'll be in my head, I'll be thinking of the character as like a certain race maybe or something, or like I'll have a vision of the actor that I want to play it in my head.
Yeah.
And then when I'm writing, like someone else will be like reading it, I'll be like, no, that's not.
Yeah, like for the film we made, like it was just kind of unspoken for us, but like I think we both knew our main character was not white.
Yeah.
But I think especially like when I noticed other people were reading it, they were categorizing this person as a white girl, and I was like,
interpreting.
I was like,
where?
No.
I was like, no, stop.
No. Not in this house.
Wrong.
Like, do you see either of us? Do we look like blonde white women? No. Like, I've seen her enough times. I don't need another white woman to look up to. Sorry. House Bunny. Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen. Like, Lindsay Lohan. I love Lindsay Lohan, but I don't identify with her.
And I think that's why we need more like people that represent us and as specific as they may be, like, because then a couple kids out there will like see
specific.
that.
I think Hollywood in general is so afraid of being specific with people of color because they don't like, they have this fear of generalizing people, but like
it's like also doing it the other way, you know?
Yeah. With white characters, like, okay, Dylan Minnette. He's the same character in every single movie. Emma Roberts is the same character in every single movie. And it's not that like we've seen these actors play different kind of characters, but like Hollywood is like, well, you're more like accessible if Dylan Minnette is like confused straight white boy, and if Emma Roberts is mean, a blonde girl. So they just
always
these very basic characters, and then with the people of color and the black characters and the LGBT
to make them like exotic or like like why can't they just be normal?
Or like base their entire character around their like identity. Like it's like I don't know.
My personality trait isn't like if I was gay. My personality trait is not being gay.
Yeah,
exactly. It's like you're more than that, you know.
And it's just perpetuating so many things, and it's just all boils down to the lack of diversity in every state, everything in our world. Everything. And especially I think that's why, again, I feel like I always get on like a little motivational spiel about this podcast, but like it's just like that's why I think talking about this stuff is so important, and I have so much faith in like our generation to ish around. Because
completely.
I feel like we're all tired of it, and we're all very diverse and like it's a social media is a beautiful thing and the most ugly thing at the same time.
Oh,
If we didn't have that, we wouldn't have a clue as to like what's going on in the world.
Exactly.
And we just have these biased news sources online, which is our parents. And like, I'm sorry, I don't want to have the same ideology as my parents because it's a small-minded worldview. And I think
completely.
As time progresses, hopefully, if we get our shit together with the environment,
I swear.
Yeah, like it's just so infuriating, I feel, as young people to see all this stuff because we're so tired of it, and we're like, we literally just, because we have social media at the palm of our hands, and we're like, we want to see this, and Hollywood, and it's like,
they're like, no,
no, Red Heart.
No, hate the Dillimanite. I'm sure he's like a good person, but like, I'm sorry.
I saw him at, me going on a tangent, I saw him at Halloween Horror Nights, and my mom recognized him. From what? The Goosebumps movie? Like, I really don't know what she recognized him from.
Maybe she watches 13 Reasons Why.
She definitely doesn't. No.
13 Reasons Why is interesting.
Hey, to wrap things up with the whole white savior thing.
It's super embedded into film and TV.
And just every
crevice of this world.
Television, we didn't even get into television, but television also is like, they'll cast,
it's really bad.
They'll use white people to tell the stories of other people. And in some cases, for example, Orange is the New Black, I think they were like, oh, this is about a white woman. And then instead they use that. She becomes less of an important character as the show goes on. And and they start,
that character was horrible.
Literally,
it was. I got so mad watching that. Like, I literally hated her character.
Awful.
See, that's a good way to like reel in the white people. Be like, hey, look, we have a white character, and it's like,
and just
they tell you about all the
irrelevant.
Psych, bitch.
But it sucks that they have to do that. That she had to pitch the show.
That's sucks.
She had to pitch the show as a white woman goes to jail for them to tell all these stories about minorities and like.
Let's normalize tricking Hollywood into greenlighting.
I agree. That's the next step for sure.
Likes to act like they're all like, oh my god, we're so diverse. And then like that new show that's coming out, I don't even know what it's called, but the writer room, like the writer had like for that show was like, yeah, Netflix was like really racist to us, and like white people were yelling at us. Did you see that?
No.
Well, yeah. Netflix is on. Netflix, be careful right now because people are not having it.
I mean, they like took away Patriot Act, which made me so fucking mad because I love Hassan Minaj. And then they replaced it with some other thing. Now, I know it's pretty controversial. I don't know enough about it to talk about it, but I'm mad that they just took down Patriot Act in general because that was like a really good form of representation for South Asian people, I guess. So, I don't know. It's fine. It's not, but I don't know, but I'm still mad.
Yeah. Oh, that's just sucks.
So I guess our call to action to Hollywood is please hire more please. We're literally begging you to please just get more diverse people into your higher executive positions because I guarantee you with the shift that you're going to see as Gen Z and millennials get older, the shift you're going to see is we want that. I mean, we're already saying it, just because you're gonna have to do it eventually. Might as well get a head start, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And like they think that
I feel like it's like it's like why do we have to beg for this?
Yeah, like this should be basic, like common sense.
Yeah, common sense.
Literally common sense. And I
think that's why I get so exasperated when we talk about like deep things like this, because I'm like, I just don't get it. Like, do you have no humanity?
Yeah, like, do you just not have common sense? Like, I don't know. But I mean,
well, it's like a business thing. I think for them, they see it as like, oh, well, people they only want to watch like white people movies, but like
you haven't tried it with any other people.
Yeah, like how would you know?
Yeah. And like Parasite last year won the Best Picture,
and that wasn't even in English. Come on.
Yeah.
Some subtitles. Like, exactly. I'm so tired of people, bro.
No,
me too. It's okay. I'm tired of white people. I like shit on them all the time, but rightfully so. But like, I mean, with all this like sad making me angry and stuff, but I am glad that we're seeing like more people of color entering the film industry. Like you guys, like I'm so excited to see the thing that you do, and I'm so glad that you guys are understanding about the issues in the film industry. So like I'm so excited for you guys, but hopefully if I do end up making it in the film industry one way or another, that I'll be able to help contribute some way. So with all the sadness that comes with like no representation, I think like in this coming generation we'll see a huge shift. Hopefully, cross my fingers, but it'll be worth it.
generation for
yeah.
reals, if we are allowed to.
Oh God.
Anyway.
Anyway, so thank you, Alina, so much for being a guest on our podcast. And
Yeah,
for everyone who's listening, we're also going to be on Colonize This next week.
very excited.
Well, like we're filming,
Yeah.
it now, but like
Yeah.
I think when the timeline of this coming out, that's going to be a week after this episode is released.
Yeah.
So
I
where can
think so.
people find you and your podcast? Like, where do you want people to find more about you?
Yeah, of course. So, yeah, you guys will the episode will probably be released a week after this one. We have like 3 film or recording at the same time, so I'm trying to like organize it. But you can follow our Instagram. It's at Colonize This Pod. My Instagram is just Alina Rahim with an extra M at the end. And you can look at our podcast is on every single platform. It's through Anchor, so it's distributed like on wherever you find it, and it's just Colonize This. But thank you guys for having me. This is literally such a great experience, and I'm excited for our other episode, which will also be very fun.
We're gonna go off again.
Yeah, and if
feel
you
like.
didn't,
I mean, yeah.
you can also find her on our Instagram. We'll post
Oh yeah.
guest highlight as well.
Yeah.
Again, thank you so much. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, me too.
Even though it's exhausting talking about white people.
It's so draining.
Yeah.
It's so exhausting. It's irritating.
It is.
But I think there's hope.
Yes.
And just realizing your privilege in any aspect you can, I think, is huge. And taking the time to reflect on yourself and your own biases is what everybody needs to do. And I like to end podcasts on like something you can take away from.
Yeah, on a positive.
Yeah,
exactly. Because it is exhausting, but do what you can to fix your own biases, because we all have them.
Yeah.
And it's okay to be wrong.
I agree.
It's normal to be wrong. And I hope to see you guys in the next episode, and make sure to listen to Colonize This.
Yeah, stay safe. Register to vote. Wear a mask.
Yes.
Register to vote and vote, please.
No. Oh yeah.
Please.
Like register.
Like
to vote
literally,
and
my little choker says vote. So do it.
I love that. I want one of those. That's great.
I'll make you one.
Do you make it?
Yeah, I made it.
Really? You make them?
Yeah.
So cute.
Everyone,
I wish I had talent.
Yeah. This is my endorsement. Settle for Biden.
Okay.
I will say that.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes, please.
Well, we can't take another 4 years. Anyway,
Sending off.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.